Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's program. I'm Wendy Much. I work at the Northville District Library. I'm very excited to have this program tonight. We have with us Manfred and Lisa Schon, and I'll tell you a little story about how I came to know what their house is. So I was at the library one day in February, back before all the things happened, and I saw this magazine. It is the Old House Journal. It has a lovely fireplace on the cover. And I went inside the magazine. The first sentence said, after we moved to Northville, Michigan. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And I read about these wonderful people who own this home and the wonderful work they're doing with it. And I thought, who are these people? And because I'm a good researcher, I went to the Ville magazine and it had an article about Mr. Schon and what he had done downtown. And then I went to a historical resource, Step by Step Through Northville, and it talked about their home and how important it was to history. So I tracked them down and I asked them to present for us, and they have agreed to do that. So we get to hear all about their lovely home and the work they're doing. So without further ado, let's welcome Manfred and Lisa. And if you have questions, please hold them to the end and mute yourself. And then you can put them in the chat and we will ask them and they will be willing to answer whatever you want to learn about them. So thank you very much and over to you.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
So thanks for joining us here tonight.
All the waves.
And thanks, Wendy, for setting it up and the invitation. And there was a time when we were going to do this in person. I remember it was supposed to be, I think, in June, right? Something like that. And then obviously for many reasons, one in specific, we moved it online. So by now, I assume everybody can see this screen that says Respect and Renew. And we have some slides prepared here for you, but the idea is to go through the slides at a relative good pace, and we'll be covering many different topics. And if you're specifically interested in one or the other, then we will jump back in the Q&A and discussion to that topic and go into more detail. So let's get started. I'll be doing the presentation part, and then the Q&A part we'll do together, unless Lisa jumps in here in the middle somewhere.
Which I might.
Okay, so what we'd like to do is, as already mentioned, tell you a story about our renovation, which is now 5 years in the making. And we're still planning next things, which tells you we're not done yet. We will highlight certain elements, and they go all the way from technology, design, craftsmanship, sustainability, and provide access to our learnings, including the people we worked with and the products we used. So there's some highlights, and in the end, we'll also give you the contact information so you can reach out to us in person. Some of the things that we put in the house from a product standpoint are not that common. So if you're interested in them, it might be very helpful to see them firsthand, and we're more than happy to accommodate that, whatever it is that might interest you. So the way we structured this, first a brief story about how we ended up in Northville. A story about the house, which the children of the last owners before us called Hedgegate, and what the slow finishing movement is all about and the next steps. So our original plan was to move within walking distance of downtown Northville. One of the main reasons was so I could walk to work and we could reduce our carbon footprint by, going down to one car and being close to a community, doing a lot of walking instead of driving. And originally, actually, the company was located in Plymouth, and we almost ended up in Plymouth. But when the deal in Plymouth fell through, we found with the company an office in downtown Northville, right across from the garage in the Jim Long building. And that then also led us to move here, consolidating 2 condos, one in California and one in Canton, Michigan. And the original idea was actually to build because the focus was really on net zero energy, low carbon footprint, going down to one car. So the first idea was all building new. Well, the plan didn't quite turn out the way it was planned. I noticed this home on my probably first or second commute coming up from Canton going to the office. And I thought it was a very interesting home. I liked the architecture. I liked pretty much everything about it when I drove by. And then we started to research sites, Wing Court, Clement, Maine, Linden, everywhere. And in 2014, while we were doing that, a for sale by owner sign went up, and we looked at this house. After talking to the owners a few times, we turned them down because we felt it was going to be much more complicated to renovate than to build new. Never renovated before, so this looked pretty complicated to us. Well, we didn't find a site, looking for several more months, and in the summer, almost a year or a good year later, the sign went back up, and then we decided to do it, and we came to an agreement and signed in September for the home, September 2015, so a little over 5 years ago. So a little history or story about the home. Again, the children of the previous owners gave it the name Hedgegate. There's actually a little metal plaque on the side of the house here with that on it. Maybe the obvious conclusion or reason is the big hedge around the house, I assume. It was originally built by Elijah Hartshorn. That picture of him here hangs here in the hallway. He built it for his grandchildren, May and Colonel Hugh Babbitt, who lived here, which still amazes me, for 72 years, from 1921 to 1993, when her granddaughter and her husband, Chris, took over the home in 93. And Cheryl and Chris is the couple that we bought the house from. One of the motivators to renovating was our good friend and architect who said, Manfred, you can do this. This house has good bones. So that was kind of what he said. Yeah, you can do this with all the people you know and everything. You can pull this off and we'll help you and all that good stuff. But again, we'd never done anything like this before, so it was a little sketchy at the beginning. Since the home had only been in the hands of two couples or owners, we found many things in their original state or condition, woodwork, the rooms, the doors, the windows, floors, a lot of things in their original form.
Which ended up being positive things for renovation.
It was mostly good because we only found one set of electrical, even though it was all knob and tube. One set of plumbing, so very little changes, but we started pretty much in many cases with 100-year-old things, such as the knob and tube wiring. The windows were original single pane. Not only were they not very energy friendly, the frames had given up in places so you could look through without opening the window. Original steam heat with the asbestos wrapped pipes downstairs. There's no insulation in the walls, even to this point. We haven't gotten to that point yet. The garage needed some significant stuff, and some work also needed to be done structurally on the porch and the carport. What originally started with being mostly about technology, energy, and updating the home changed with the purchase of living room furniture. So we have still only bought one room of furniture, which is the living room. Everything else we moved from the two condos. And we had, for a living room, we only had a white couch left. And when we put the couch in here, I was okay with it, but Lisa said, this doesn't work. And so then she started to research what would go with a house like this. And that opened up the whole new avenue that we had to stay authentic to the inside, not just, energy and technology and everything, which then led us to, again, this is where Lisa comes in with all the research, and then led us to the Asheville convention or conference, Arts and Crafts. I think it's the largest one in the US. You actually see Lisa over here looking at some furniture. So we went to Asheville, spent 3 days at this conference, got more and more ideas about old and new and, you know, all these kinds of things. So we went from restoring just for, let's say, technology and energy to also now authentic arts and crafts design. Then we went to the library and our scope extended a little further because we, at the library here in Northville, we met Drew Lathan. And he then told us, well, whatever you do in the garden, you better do it this way to be sustainable from a landscape. So now we went from energy to interior to exterior. And ultimately the scope then included pretty much everything we touched around in the house to be all what we call respect and renew. And the respect of this has two elements, architecture and design. We're trying to do things in the authentic way so the new looks like the old, and you'll see some examples here later, so you can't tell whether it was actually updated. Then the respect then goes on to environment, sustainability, net zero consumption, no fossil fuels, sustainable materials, landscaping. And then when you implement based on that, we've learned a lot from our craftsmen, and we're blessed to know a lot of excellent people. Their expertise and their knowledge has been really the key to what we've been doing. Their quality of execution, and then also, like my dad always taught me, do it once, do it right, and never do it again. So the maintainability for doing it in the right way. Also, you know, I don't want to maintain a lot of this 10 years from now. I want it to be pretty stable by then. So one of the key guys we work with, his name is Jove Cantillon. He owns a company, Cantillon Finishers. They specialize in restoration and finishing woodwork and all kinds of other finishing, plaster and things. And when he learned about us, I've known Jove for 20 years. When he learned what we were doing, he said, well, finally, welcome to the slow finishing movement. And his tagline was, it'll take longer than you think. And it's absolutely correct. So the slow finishing movement, we renovate in phases. The reason we have to do it, we live in the house while we renovate. That takes a lot of tolerance and patience, a lot of cleaning. And a good sense of humor. We also do it because of budget, save up, do the next thing, save up, do the next thing kind of thing. And what Lisa sometimes says, we learn by living in the house. And she once said, the kitchen hasn't told us yet what it wants to be. So living in the house helps making some decisions about how to renovate or how to change things as we go forward. The right-hand side are real pictures of the Cantillon finishers, believe it or not. The right picture from the large door, and the guy who's stretching the hands up, he's 7'1" tall. And the one on the left, that's actually a door at our house. They called it the fairy door. It's at a little valve in the basement, a clean out drain. So these guys also have a very good sense of humor besides being very skilled. And we've worked a lot with them and enjoy it very much. So when we got into it in 2015-16, we started with, even though there weren't necessarily little steps in the disruption, but there were not yet the big things where a lot of things came together. It was typically one craft at a time or one trade. And we started with the electrical and took out all the knob and tube. We got a little creative at times, as you see up here, opening up the beams in the living room and the dining room. So we ran the wires through the hollow spaces instead of tearing up the ceiling. The original plaster we didn't want to touch, or some of the other trim work. So a little creativity and a very good electrician. That's actually my oldest craftsman friend here. I've known Marlon for almost 22 years. Everything I've done electrical in the last 22 years, Marlon has done. We then did some structural work. The carport, the porch had, as my friend says, a little smile to it. So they were hanging a bit. So we did some structural work. We got to some insulation underneath the front porch. And while we're at it, also then obviously added new headers and also a new ceiling to it. The dining room, again, was also a relatively small project, mostly paint and the wood paneling that you see in the original in the middle picture here, the before, was sort of wallpaper originally. We went between fabric and wallpaper, ended up again basically by consulting by the Cantillon finishers by matching the walnut finish in this room. The dining room is the only room that isn't oak finished. It's walnut finish, and we just recently learned that the wood came from the black walnut trees on May Babbitt's family's property in Novi. That's just a recent discovery Lisa made.
Thank you, Northville Record Archives.
So the dining room, again, it was a facelift, if you wish, and a little bit woodwork and painting and lighting. Other than that, in its original shape. The first big step, and also the first arts and crafts real step, came with the fireplace. So the original fireplace, and I just looked at the date this morning of this picture, it must have been when the original owners moved out, because it's the September of '93 when they turned over the house to Chris and Cheryl. And you see there was carpet on the wood floor, the radiators were open, and the fireplace was the original brick from the outside, just on the inside as well. Chris and Cheryl then, on the bottom right, that's how we took over the house at the time. They put a lot of wood cladding on the fireplace, added some tile, and obviously also took the wood flooring. The wood flooring used to be light. This was already after we refinished it to a dark. And then Chris had also built these radiator covers around the steam radiators. So we ran into Matawi tile on a walk through Ann Arbor once, and we saw a fireplace in one of the art stores there. And then we thought, oh, that would be nice in the house. So we looked at, obviously online, everything, met with one of their designers, and then we did some cut and paste. I like to do computer cut and paste of pictures and images. And it took us about 3 to 4 months to go back and forth, you know, with samples and looking at samples and what colors would fit. And then also we decided to go from gas back to wood, but do a wood insert that also produces some heat with the blow the air out and everything. So looking for a matching, or from a design standpoint, a fitting and also a high efficiency wood burning insert. So that was a lot of research that went into it. And then we started the demolition. So we, underneath the mantle, we took everything off back to the original surface, grinded out a few stones, raised the hearth, made some structural things, because that wood burning insert is over 300 pounds heavy, I learned. So it had to be a little bit reinforced there to handle that properly. Found a really, really good tile guy. Unfortunately, that's the one I can't pass on because he moved to Oregon 6 months ago. That's very sad, because he did a phenomenal job. Not just here, he also did all the tile work downstairs, which you'll see in a moment. So these guys put the tile in, everything together, and then the founder of the slow finishing movement, the guy in the yellow shirt there, one of the only guys in the shop that doesn't have a beard, or not a beard like the guy that's kneeling there, put the finishing touches on. And that included also work from Tiffany Art Glass, John here in town, with the glasswork you see there. Little bit together with Lisa, modeled after our pattern on the couch pillows or cushions. And you can see here already a little bit of what I said earlier, that the skill that Jove and his team have to make something new look like it was there before. So the matching of the wood and the stain, you can't tell, even if you tried very hard to decipher what's, or to distinguish what's new and what's old. And Wendy had already mentioned that is what brought us together. when Motawi has gotten a fair amount of mileage out of the fireplace in their advertisement. And so Motawi was also the, let's say, the initiator behind the story in the old house. And then through Motawi, the old house then magazine contacted us whether we were going to talk a little bit about it. And that's how Wendy found us, as she mentioned before. And this is where I mentioned earlier, the furniture started it all. Those 3 pieces of furniture were the trigger to then go all the way with the arts and crafts, authentic interiors. Then we got to the real big step, which involved serious breaking of things. And it got a little shaky too, because what we did is we took out the basement. I didn't even know that was a thing to do, that you lower your basement instead of raising the house. So that was new to me. It wasn't as difficult as I thought. So the original basement it was basically really in its original shape, a coal room. There were the utilities, the steam furnace and the pipes and everything. The floor was a little, in some areas it was not, I wouldn't call it even. It was a rough poured concrete floor. In some spots it was also loose. So the floor was not in the best shape. And for me in particular, even though it was a decent height for a basement that from that time period, 5'8" was about the height where the pipes cleared, and I'm 6'5". So my injuries motivated me here as well, especially at night or so when I started to walk through there. And also the beams were just, and that's the most dangerous height, they were just an inch below me with the support beams, the white beams that you see there. The stairway from the first floor down was not walkable by me, more crawlable. At least I could do it. And we did 2 test digs and we found out the walls go deep enough so we can take about 1 foot out. We ended up with gaining about 6 inches underneath the beams. So there's 6'9", so I can easily walk under. And the ceiling height is now about 7'6". The house had settled about 1.5 inch to the west side. We got that back by about 1/2, so it's still about 3/4 of an inch lower, which is not a problem. The wood in the living room here had actually split in 1 point from the settling. And when they adjusted all that, that's when it got a little shaky when Lisa was upstairs and they were moving the house a little bit from underneath. So those were some very interesting times. Together with the architect, we laid out the plan for the basement, and there's really 3 main areas that we looked at. One is the house had 1.5 bathrooms when we moved in, and we're fans of sauna, not just because of the health benefit, but also it gives you something to do between October and April in Michigan that keeps you nice and warm. So we combined a full bathroom downstairs with a sauna area, that's the red area, laundry room, the blue area, and then utility a little in 3 different places because of access where we needed to get, for example, the middle green space, there is a furnace, and not a furnace, an air handler that blows the air conditioning all the way up to the attic. So we needed that chase in the middle. So that's why that's a little, the main one is down at the bottom on the right is the main utility room. And just this year, we're putting in 2 Tesla batteries for backup energy, which I'll get to when I talk about, or we talk about the next steps. And then there was, or is, an original cistern in the basement, the light blue area there. Chris had cut that open and had his workshop in there. I don't know how Chris did that because he was maybe just an inch shorter than me. And that room, because the cistern raised floor had maybe a standing height of 5.5 feet. So he must have liked to do a lot of work at his workbench, very much bent over, paying a lot of attention to details. So I moved the workshop out of there, and we're probably gonna keep that as a root cellar, wine cellar, because it has those big concrete walls that keep temperature very well. It's definitely not gonna be a root cellar, a cistern. So once we cleared everything out and with this plan to go, this is what the basement looked like when we started to go back in with new stuff. The first thing was leveling the floor, gravel, put 2 inches of foam insulation and put radiant floor heat down before we poured a new slab. Because that's a very, if you have the slab to do, this is a very inexpensive way to put heat down there. You just put your plastic tubing in the floor. On the right-hand side, you see the little main utility room. That's what a utility room is. Here you see the manifold for this zone for the radiant inflow heat. And then we also use the radiant retrofitting to put radiant heat in the first floor from underneath, pushing it up the heat through these aluminum conducting panels. And these are 2x8 joists, which then we filled up with R19 or the 2x6 wall fiberglass insulation to keep the heat pushing up into the first floor. So the whole first floor is heated like this with 2 zones, and the whole basement is one zone. Whoops. One zone of this radiant inflow heat.
Beams.
Oh yeah, sorry, yep. We also structurally, the house had 2 wooden beams, this one and that one. We added steel beams, and then we added 2 more on each side to reduce a little bit the span that those 2x8s had. They had a pretty significant span, which we could also see in the floor and the squeaking and a little bit of a bounce. So we doubled up a little bit while we were at it on the structural support for the house. All the exterior walls became framed in and insulated with foam. So what you see here is the poured concrete walls. The house is perfectly dry, probably also because it sits on like beach sand. So when we dug this out, the hard part was the walls and the foundation and the concrete, but once they got to dirt, it was pure sand. I'm not going to try to explain all of that on the right-hand side, but just for those who have a technical interest, I'll offer either later on more detail, or if you want to, feel free to contact me and come over to take a look at this. It's basically the upper right-hand side here is the main geothermal system. This is where the loop from the outside comes in. This is the hot water tank for all the inflow radiant heat. This is the hot water for domestic. We have a solar support for heat, which this controls. We have an whole house water filtration system with UV filtering, an air handler that handles the second floor heating and cooling. So air conditioning was also added to the house. And these are the solar tubes that help the geo to heat for heating or for the domestic hot water through this system here. And then online, I can watch this, you know, how it's going, where the heat's going, what's running, what's on and off, what's using, and so on. And in October 2018, we actually disconnected the house from gas completely. So the house is entirely powered by electricity. So all the utilities and all the appliances, everything is electric.
That confused the heck out of the guy who came out to turn it off.
Yeah, I got a call the other day also for our gas meter was broken.
It's gone. It's not broken. It's gone.
So here's one of the finished shots from the basement. That's Lisa over there celebrating 5 months of laundromat behind her when we got the framing and the plumbing to a point where the laundry equipment could be installed. Washer and dryer.
Is that part of the patient's part?
Yes, that's part of the patient's part. And on the right-hand side, you see what it looks today. It's also Lisa's bird room, as you can see. You'll learn a little bit more about Lisa and birds here in a moment. You also see, again, all this woodwork here is by Cantillon Finishers, the cabinets, the counters, the beams, the ceiling, the trim, the door. And then they also help us find the right hardware to go with, for example, the door here that fits the time and authentic design from their perspective. So they've been extremely helpful when it comes to the choices that we make. This is the sauna room on the other side of the laundry room. Again, also the cabinets here all made by Jove and his staff. The flooring in the shower and the ceiling is teak wood to also is the counter in the laundry room to withstand the water and the humidity better. All the lighting in our house is from one company, Hubbard and Forge. I don't know how many of you have looked at when you make lighting choices, too many choices, it's a pain. We found this company we actually found them in Canton in the condo. So that's 12 years ago, and we hung on to them, and they especially have very nice arts and crafts light fixtures. And you see here, this was my shower handle, the door handle, a little knob here and a little knob here. And then Jove said, you know, we need a better one. So that's their version of my craftsmanship here. Then it got a little unusual maybe, and this is what I meant before, when there are some things here that you probably can't see in many other places. A good friend of mine has a window company in Germany. That's his company, that's his staff. There are about 25 people. Interesting is he's the 5th generation owner. They've been doing this since 1867, and it's still in the family. So he's the 5th son that has taken it over. I introduced him to the US in 2000, and since then he has delivered probably about 100 residential projects, mostly in Michigan, Florida, and California. And in 2008, when we went through the downturn, one of my craftsman friends here was struggling in the US, and I told him I had this great idea that he could work in Germany in a window factory for 9 months. So we moved him and his family over there, him and his wife and his young, I think.
She was 5.
5. She was 5 years old then, Ruby. And he then came back and actually managed the US projects for this window company from 2009 to 14. He's still doing the same thing, just now for an Italian company. So why do this besides being friends with this gentleman? Quality is one thing. What helped us a lot here in the renovation was they don't know standard sizes. So no matter what the size of your window is, and ours are almost all different. So each window that came here was numbered to the opening that it was meant for, because they were different by, let's say, up to a ½ inch. And they were all made to a 1/16 of an inch to fit each individual opening. And there's no upcharge for that. The other thing is they come pre-finished. We send a color sample of the wood to Germany, and 2 iterations back and forth, they matched it and finished the windows already the way they came over in the container. And then they have a bird glass protection option, which a bird protection glass option, which you'll see here in a moment what that's all about. And last but not least, this tilt and turn mechanism that you see on the right-hand side here. So that's the tilt option for ventilation. And the turn option swings inside, makes it very easy to clean windows even on the 2nd floor. So you can clean it while it's raining, or you know, you don't have to have ladders or climb around like we do now, or I don't do it. We pay somebody to do it. But you can conveniently clean them from the inside. And it's also, obviously, you can vent more than this if you open them that way. Yeah. So we had looked at Marvin and other window makers to do this. And the moment I asked the guy for Marvin, I'd like to install these from the outside so we don't have to remove the 100-year-old trim on the inside. He's like, yeah, you can't do that. So, but I didn't want to damage the inside of the original wood trim. So with this, with the design we came up with, we were able to install the windows from the outside, even though the outside opening was 6 inches bigger than the inside opening. We found a way to do that with 2 aluminum claddings. The red one is actually the inside opening. The green one covers the outside. You see here, we tried to, as good as possible, match the original paint colors with the German code is RAL, and they have hundreds of shades. So we did a match to the original. Then when the windows came, they came in this additional wood frame, which holds the green extra aluminum frame, which covers this gap where the outside opening was larger than the inside opening. And it allowed us to install them from the outside. This is actually Jim Sonner. That's the guy who was trained in the factory, who spent 9 months in Germany. And the installation was done by his brother, Jeff Sonner, who he got training on the job here on how to do it. And he then took over and did the installation for us. And Hartmut came over to visit during the project. That's actually the 5th generation owner of the company. And that's his foreman, Karsten, who does all the design and all the engineering. And in the end, when I compared the cost of what this was to do this with the windows from Germany, we actually saved money by not going local because of all the extra work that it would have taken to customize if we had done it the same way from the outside in and matching all these different sizes where we had slight differences in the size. Another nice thing, which in the beginning, Jeff was skeptical about because he had never done it, is they come with it's almost like a magic foam. And so it's a tape that you put on the outside before you install it, you push it in. And over the period of a week, the foam goes from like 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch to about 2 inches. And it even fills into the little grooves or the mortar joints on the brick and seals tight. So there's no caulking or anything like that involved. And the foam became their best friend after a while. So they were really happy with it. But at first they weren't so sure that that was a good thing. Maybe on the design, you know, with the double hung, you have to have a 50-50 split with the design here. You have flexibility. You could go, we went like 60-40 just from a design, keeping the mullions, but lifting the horizontal up a little bit. You could go all the way wherever you wanted to because you're not bound by the 50-50 split of the window of the double hung. This one is one of the big fixed windows here where we actually needed a little bit of a crane to lift it in place. So do you want to do this? No? Okay. So this is actually what Lisa does for a living, bird protection glass. It's a glass that birds can see because birds can see UV light, and it has a UV reflective coating, a pattern coating on it. And to give you a little bit of an idea, on the top here, you see a zoomed in picture of this exterior, and you might see a little bit of the pattern here, which if you angle right at the light, you can see it. And then from the inside, it's clear, you can't see it. And the real purpose is an estimated 1 billion birds die from glass collision in North America per year. So this glass, when it's put in, it reduces the likelihood of a collision significantly by 70-80%. It's not perfect. It's not like a solid space, but it significantly reduces it, and therefore the impact of that danger for birds. Going outside. You heard earlier we met Drew. Drew told us when you plant something, do it native, do it sustainable, attract the bugs, the birds, all those good things. And we started with what this book calls health strip gardening. So the space between the sidewalk and the curb. And a lot of things were reluctant to grow there, especially normal turf grass. The house had 9 sprinkler zones. 2 of them served just the health strips here on Thayer and on Rogers. And so we wanted to reduce the watering, the mowing, the weeding, and worked with Drew on this sustainable support for less water, less maintenance, and for the insects, like a pollinator-friendly garden. In a moment, you'll see what that buffalo is up there. So On Thayer, this is what it looked like after, I would say some of these pictures are a year old, year or two old. So obviously first the grass was covered and died off a little bit. Then the new plantings were put in, as you see here, with a lot of mulch. And then this is roughly what the seasons look now. We get a lot of success also with the butterflies. There's 5 different species of plants in here which bloom sequentially pretty much for the time period between May and September. And hardly any watering, and just a spring and a fall cleanup. On the Rogers side, we didn't go with the flowers. We went with something called buffalo grass, a native Michigan grass. It's planted in plugs. The more sun, the better. Its roots go up to 7 feet deep. You see here the comparison between non-native species and Michigan native species, how deep the roots go. That's why you don't have to water them.
There's the turf grass.
And there's turf grass is no comparison. I mean, it's basically surface grass. So the buffalo grass goes down, let's say 6, 7 or more feet. This side, we mow 2 or 3 times a year, just at a high level, and put the edging on it. Very few weeding because it's so dense and thick that weeds don't really grow there. The one thing to know though, this picture was taken actually on Sunday, yesterday, that it turns dormant between November and April. So it turns brown. Then we had to deal with some water challenges, that the house slopes or the lot slopes from the west to the east, and it also tilts a little bit towards the house. So Lisa's fun times here was a little bit also aided by the construction that was going on. It made it a little worse, but even without the construction, water hit that corner of the house to the point where sometimes we actually had water coming into the basement. So in the redoing of the basement, we raised the windows 4 inches. They were actually below water level, so to speak, at times. The basement windows. We connected the downspouts to underground piping and away from the house. And then we had areas that needed work anyway from the geofield being put in. So you see we're routing this back here to what you'll see in a moment, one of the 2 rain gardens, the big one, and the geothermal field for the wells is actually back here. That's where it was drilled. We had one on the hottest day we dug. We had to slay a root. It was very hot. It was probably 100 degrees. We ran into a big, who knows where it's from, why it was there. I think there was a tree at one time. A big root right in the path of our chosen route to the rain garden. Here you see a little bit of the drilling that happened during the geothermal field. 4 holes, 180 feet deep. They then connect them all to one field, and that comes into the geothermal unit underground. And then on top of it is where we put the big rain garden on the south side. Here you see it, I think this fall. Here you see how the water ends up going to the rain garden. This is the one on the other side of the house. It captures less water because it only covers half of the house. The other one covers the house, the garage, and the driveway. So this is a smaller one on the north side. Here's a little action shot of
Rain garden.
action. So you see the water coming down. There's some filtered piping. There's a filter in there so nothing goes in there, and then the water flows into the rain gardens. And these are all plants that like a lot of water. So that's, since then, we've had no water problems anymore, and the plants are happy.
And it keeps the rainwater in the ground.
Yep. Oh, there. We're also continuing to reduce lawn. So don't be surprised if there might not be much left in 5 years, but the goal is to be more on the garden side, trees, shrubs. So less lawn. This is a corner we just did last year. And then there are those things that all of a sudden have to be done. So on the top left-hand side, we had this wooden trellis. Neighbors told us about 10, 15 years it was put up. And I noticed it becoming a little shaky. And then when I took one of the posts out, I noticed why. So we had to do something in putting something new in there. And then we have a good friend as a blacksmith, Drew here. And we also wanted to do it in the spring before the flowers started to bloom. And we wanted to put it underneath so the flowers could, the plants could stay. So we welded this thing together underneath. Some of it he welded in the shop underneath and put it in there while we were taking the other one out. And I think we just cut one small branch. The rest stayed exactly where it was. It was a little tricky, but it was also a lot of fun. Few things about what's next. This is actually happening right now. The garage roof was just redone about a month ago. We used a polymer roofing product that is 70% recycled from industrial plastic and has a warranty of about 50 years, or not about, they say it has a 50-year warranty. And we used their shape again to go with the house. And unfortunately, in about, I don't know when, the solar panels are a little hard to get right now, but sooner or later, most of this will be covered with solar panels. We're putting in 19 400-watt panels, so about 7.6 kilowatt on the garage, one row on the back, 2 rows on the front, and we're putting batteries in the basement for storage, also for power backup in the house. The next second big step hopefully happens next year, depending on how COVID continues in construction. And it deals with a combination of structure, roof. The main house needs work, creating space for solar panels because the garage will not be enough to go net zero. We need a few more probably on the back side of the house. It also increases the interior space a little bit to get rid of these gaps in between the dormers and connecting them into one. Covering the steps in the front and the back, we had to redo this because the frost and snow and everything that goes on there has pushed these apart. Building Lisa a nest, she likes to sleep outside, so there's a balcony off the bedroom here that reaches into the maple, and I'll call that her nest. Back here, which already has a little indentation coming out a little bit, we're going to take that out a little further to also cover the basement stairs to get the weather out of there so you can go in and go into the basement undercover. The third step, once that is done on the outside, will be then the last part of the interior of the house. We've done the basement, we've done the front side, so the dining room, the hallway, the living room. Then it would be the west side of the house, the kitchen and the back entry, and the master bathroom upstairs. And that's it on the slides. And as said before, we're happy to share all this. We mentioned some of these names as we went through it. There's more than this. This is just one of the, it's a pretty comprehensive list of the main things we used. But if you've seen anything that you'd like to know more about, also where it came from or who did it, we're happy to share that. So thank you very much. I hope it wasn't too fast and too many different things, but let's see if we have some questions.
I will say just, it's been a very interesting journey and a learning process. I know a lot about craftsmanship, construction, patience. Yeah, it's been a really fun journey. And you know, just my perspective, I mean, Manfred put most of this narrative together, but you know.
You take all the pictures, so.
Well, I took all the pictures. I'm really happy that we took all the pictures.
Yeah, if it was up to me, we wouldn't have had much to share here tonight in terms of visuals.
It's all about the journey.
That's right.
I thought I saw that your next phase will be the kitchen. Is that right?
No, that's next after. So first the outside,
Mhm.
because the kitchen is actually going to be in the extension mostly, and this doesn't exist yet. So it would be right here. So we're first going to focus on getting the shell and the windows and the insulation and everything ready, and then going and doing the inside. And it's probably going to be a 2-year process. And for that last part, when we do the inside, we might even have to move out because it touches some of the essential, the main bathroom and the kitchen. And we might not be able to stay in the house for a few months when they do that. So far, we've always been here. That might not happen when we do that one. But that's not till 2022. The goal was that was actually all done by next year, but that's unlikely. It's very difficult right now to schedule anything with the current situation because you really don't know. Like, for example, the simple thing, the solar on the garage, this should have been done 3 months ago, and we still don't know when the panels get here. So it's all a little bit sketchy right now to do work like this.
We do have a question from Frankie. He says he's wondering about the windows. If they break, how easy will it be to repair them?
Well, depends on what breaks. A glass is a pane of glass that can be shipped or maybe even locally sourced, unless you want really the exact same, coating and everything like this. In our case, with the bird coating, it would come from Germany. They're pretty robust. I mean, I know customers for 20 years that have had them and they had no repair done or anything, and they work still like the first day. So the quality is pretty high, but getting parts or things to repair them, there's skill in Michigan, which is the good news, right in Ann Arbor. That's also where the representative of that company is. And yeah.
I will say though that, I mean, obviously I've been involved with the German glass manufacturer for a little over 10 years now. And unless you've experienced glass from Germany, it really, you have no concept of what it is. I mean, when I first encountered it, it was just unbelievable. I mean, the units are very thick, the glass is very thick. I just remember like at our place in Canton, where we had just generic, it was a condo, so it wasn't, like very robust windows, but literally you could touch the glass and you could push it and it would push. And this glass here, I really think it would withstand a baseball hit.
It depends.
Well, it depends on who's hitting it. But yeah, that is one thing, when you get into, I mean, I'm sure you could have this glass produced in the US if you didn't want the bird protection glass, because you would just have them build it to the specification of what the insulated glass unit is. So you could have a similar thickness of glass, but when you decide for the Ornolux, the bird protection part, that comes from a German company. So you go into it knowing that if you do have something happen, a breakage, if it's in the summer, no big deal. If it's in the winter, you board it up and you have to wait 4 weeks for a replacement unit. But so again, it's that planning thing. It's the knowing what you're getting into, and being willing to take that step for that level of quality or that type of product.
And Frankie was the person who asked the question. Yeah, and again, if you want to see them, operate them or something, just let us know. Again, it's also the tilt and turn is a very uncommon mode of operating here. In Europe, it's the standard, so I was always very familiar with it, but it's different. It's not for everybody, but the easiest way to confirm that is just to touch and open it and work with it.
All right, there's a question that's asking, what is your favorite element of the house that you're keeping exactly the same as it was?
The wood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the wood. I mean, again, we went through a fair amount of effort to not even touch the interior trim. installing the windows from the outside. So we haven't really removed any original woodwork at all.
And Elijah hanging in the foyer. It's very important. No, I carry him around when we're doing projects. I'm like, dude, you good with this? Does this meet with approval? Give me a sign if not.
Uh-oh.
So
Okay.
Cheryl had a funny, when they left, we asked if we could take a picture of that picture of Elijah that hangs in the hallway. And she said, why? And well, we'd like to do a replica and hang it there. And she took it off the wall. She gave it to Lisa and she says, you can have him. I've taken care of him long enough. So we inherited Elijah, and the original is hanging right here looking at us right now. So yeah, that I would say in summary, none of the woodwork has been touched. Some of it has been a little refreshed, you know, like where it was damaged or something. But the woodwork is definitely staying wherever we can keep it.
And maybe the front porch.
Yeah, I mean, structurally, we're not making, we're fixing things. We're not, actually, the roof and the extension on the back is the first time we're taking something that we're adding or changing the house from an architectural standpoint. We do have to, I mean, the roofing, we've had several water leaks in the area. Those 6 gables are, and with their steep pitch, not pitch, but they run into this steep corner, snow builds up, ice builds up. So we've had our fair amount of headaches with these 6 gables, and just going to 2. There's a bit of a simplification besides the solar space and all that other stuff. Architecturally, we're trying to make minimal changes. We're not going to make any changes to the interior of the house from a layout other than the basement. I mean, but that was basically utility. But up the first and the second floor, no room changes, no wall changes.
We're not adding bedrooms.
Nothing.
Not adding, yeah.
Nothing.
All right. Frankie would also like to know what your siding is made from.
So the siding for, right now we have 3 sidings. We have, obviously the house is completely wrapped in brick. Fortunately, it's a brick that we can still buy new, Belden brick from Ohio. We bought some of it already when we restored the front stairs. There is vinyl siding up in the gables currently, and the garage we just clad it with hardy board on top of the original wood that was just done last month. So when we redo the gables at the top, it's likely that the outside and the front might end up as hardy board, like we're using it on the garage.
Lots of people are thanking you for sharing your wonderful house and your process. Someone has a suggestion. If you're going to do your kitchen, you maybe would want to do camper in the driveway. That worked for her.
We've heard,
I don't know.
We've heard that one.
Time, yeah.
We've heard that one before. Yes, camper in the driveway. Yep.
All right. And Derek would like to contribute, so we'll unmute him if we can, Evan.
Hey guys, how's
Hey.
everyone doing? Everyone had a great Thanksgiving. My name's Derek Blair. Been here 5 years. I actually live in Cabbagetown right now on Old Baseline. But as our good mayor knows, own a wonderful house on Fair, just a few houses down from you guys, which was Eddie Simpson's house, I guess. He built in 1926. And I did not do a thorough job of renovating it as you guys have, but you've done a way better job of documenting it. You were just mentioning the porch, and that was my initial intent, was just open up the porch, because there was a screened-in porch species in green when I bought it 6 years ago, as a rental at the time. And then it ended up becoming a major renovation, as many of you may know. And it's gone on for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now, but it's beautiful and great workmanship by Jim Walter Construction out of Plymouth. Anyway, yeah, I very impressed by what you guys have done. Love the fact that I renovated the house, made it. I tried to bring it back to its former glory as well. Honored the front rooms, the front living rooms, the front bedrooms, and then same thing we added on the back, and we've done a bit to enjoy that beautiful ravine in behind us there. So I just want to contribute to that, and that proud to be part of this community, and really jealous when you guys bought that place, because I bought my place on Baseline like 3 months before you guys buying it, and I wanted that. You guys have done a way better job than I would have done renovating it. So thank you so much.
Well, Derek, the work that you did on that house is beautiful. Obviously, we were witness to all of the steps because it's just down the street from us, and it was very beautiful. You know, opening up the porch, and like you said, that's such a great space. It connects you to the community, and it turned out really nice. And maybe sometime you'll leave Cabbagetown and be back over there, and we'll be down the street neighbors.
I'm a very good friend of mine leasing from me now, and but that might be a good possibility. I also understand, Lisa, you have some artwork that's been decorating your house from.
Oh yes, from Northville Gallery, of course, and not only just new artwork, but all of the reframing that we've done. Because as actually going back to what Manfred said about the living room and what we were doing with the furniture, the things that we had, like, all of the artwork, a lot of the artwork that we had was in our place in Santa Barbara. And it was, all light colored frames, very thin, sort of modern, light colored wood. And the paintings are beautiful. But when we, hanging in this living room with this dark, rich wood, the quarter sawn oak, it just really, that was part of that design renovation, was doing the reframing of the artwork that we had to make it fit. We put it up on the walls. And the house said, no, that is not looking good.
Well, enough of my shameless self-promotion, but thank you so much for all your support. And so again, so glad to be part of this wonderful community.
Thank you.
We have another question from Frankie. Who did the basement radiant floor heat for you?
Company in Ann Arbor, Jetstream Mechanical. We met Jetstream because they do a lot of geothermal work and a lot of radiant. So in my research for geothermal, I talked to several companies, but they were definitely top notch. I mean, Jetstream executed, and they actually were bold enough, brave enough to take on the solar, the hot water solar, because they hadn't done that before. They've done 3 since. So since they did this project, they've actually done it 3 more times. But this is the house where they did it the first time, and not every contractor likes to do new things at a house. So Jetstream Mechanical, highly recommended. In Ann Arbor. And again, if you can find them or something, I hope you wrote down the email address from us. Feel free to ping me anytime, especially on the technical stuff.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for our lovely presenters? Well, on behalf of the library, I just want to thank you so very much for letting us into your home literally this evening and showing us around. And I can't wait to see what the next phases bring, and see your garden in full bloom next year. See how those natives are working out in the rain gardens. Drew is a good friend of mine, and yeah, he will bug you if you do something that he doesn't like. And he'll
Oh yeah.
let you know if it's not right.
I've bumped up against that. I've had to defend myself a couple of
Yes.
times, and I left almost, I was properly admonished.
It's your yard though, so you have to have something you like just for yourself.
No, he's a good guidepost. But Wendy, thank you for inviting us, and Ivan, thank you for administering the meeting, and for everybody participating. Hopefully it was somewhat interesting, and
Yeah,
we're
we
here for
appreciate it.
questions. Yeah, we
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. And I'll see you at the library when we reopen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.